Hello, this is Scott Barrett. In this short training video, I'm going to show you how to use the seller's form wizard and navigate through it. So let's begin. I've logged into the back office system, and now I have two ways to launch the seller forms wizard. One is I have a quick link button right here on the welcome page when you log in. And the other is I can just use the navigation bar at the top, click forms, and click seller forms wizard. So we basically have 6 simple questions. Answering these 6 questions will bundle all the documents required to execute a listing with a property owner. So let's go through them. I'm going to show you the questions. I'm going to explain what they do individually. So community property type. So it's already going to establish that it's going to give you a listing agreement based on the answer to this question. Is going to determine which listing agreement and then any additional documents or disclosures that should ride with the listing agreement depending on the property type in the community of which the property is located. So I have my options are home without an HOA, home with an HOA, home with HOA and a CDD, a condominium, and vacant land. So if I choose home without HOA, so it's going to give me the listing agreement, no disclosures. Home with HOA is going to give me the HOA disclosure. Home with HOA CDD is going to give me the HOA and CDD disclosure. Condominium, it'll give me the listing agreement with the condominium disclosure, and vacant land is just basically going to give me the vacant land listing agreement versus a residential listing agreement. So let's choose home with HOA for this example. Will Crown Title Agent be handling the closing? Because Crown Title Agency is owner affiliated with Florida Luxury Realty, it is required by law that that affiliation is disclosed. And so we will say yes, and that will give us the disclosure form required for the seller to sign to identify the relationship between Crown Title Agency and Florida Luxury Realty. Was the property built before 1978? Obviously, you understand that this will determine whether or not the lead-based paint disclosure form will be added to the documents. So I'm going to say yes for the purpose of this demonstration. Is the property a 55 or 62 plus community? Again, it will provide the disclosure. Disclosures should be signed and filled out by the seller, provided to a potential buyer that's interested in buying the property. So the buyer is disclosed the proper information when they sign the documents. And those disclosures effectively become part of the contract. Next question. Are the sellers U.S. citizens? So I'm going to say no because I want to talk about that a little bit. So yes or no. If I say yes, really nothing happens, no additional document. If I say no, there's an additional disclosure. This is basically just a disclosure from the brokerage to the seller, acknowledging that there is laws that would require that a non-U.S. citizen selling property in the United States could be subject to a 15% tax paid from at the point of closing on the particular property. And so that's important that they understand that. We wouldn't want them to learn that at the closing table. Is the property in a flood zone? Yes or no? This again, I'm going to say yes because I want to show you the disclosures that it gives. If it is, then it is basically disclosure from the brokerage to the seller, explaining that there are things that are changing regarding subsidies from the National Flood Association flood program by the United States, and therefore flood insurance effectively is going up and up each year, which could potentially affect owners' property ability to sell their property should it be in a zone where flood insurance is required. So I've answered the 6 questions. I hit next. And basically, it comes back and it tells me the whole list, and I basically gave answers that would give us almost every form in this particular situation. So it's going to give me the TILA RESPA TRID disclosure, the residential listing agreement, the residential seller's disclosure, HOA community addendum, Crown Title Agency affiliated business disclosure, a foreign seller disclosure, national flood insurance disclosure, housing for older persons rider, and lead-based paint addendum. All of those documents are now bundled together for me to effectively download and fill out and then be able to send to the seller for signing. So if I just need to get those documents, I hit listing package. And if you look down in the lower left corner, they are downloading to my computer so that I can then open them and box it, fill them out appropriately, and then print them for my seller to sign in person, or it could be done e-signing as well. So that's a process. Let me actually show you the documents. I'm going to pull them. Let's see if I can open them. So here are the TRID, the listing agreement, the seller's disclosure, the affiliated business disclosure, talking about if the property owner is not a U.S. citizen, the withholding, potentially withholding of 15% at closing, that flood insurance, the property with a requirement of flood insurance could affect its ability to sell because of the rising cost of insurance. And then we said it was an HOA, so the HOA disclosure. We said that it was built before 78, so the lead-based paint disclosure. And then we also said it was in a community where it was for folks that are 55 years or 62 years or older as an HOA requirement. So this is that disclosure form as well. So let's go back to the office website. And I want to show you the other things that you likely will need. That would be a profile sheet. So depending on what MLS is your primary MLS that the property will be listed in, you can get the appropriate profile sheet. So let me click here, and it downloads for this sample the MFR MLS profile sheet. I open it up, and there it is. This really provides a good guide if you print this out, so that when you're sitting with the owner, you can ask them detailed questions about the property. And I'll give you some examples, such as, is there a garbage disposal? What type of utility water system is it on? Those things are very important, so that we're putting the correct information in the MLS to market that property. And then in between, right next to the listing package button, is a seller's net sheet. So seller's net sheet becomes very important, so that you're disclosing to the seller, at the time of closing, when all said and done, what am I going to walk away from the closing table in my pocket after I sell my home? And basically this document, or this particular service, will provide you the ability, I'll just go through that. Mr. Seller, names, if they're on Main Street, address of the property. And then we can put in 2 prices, kind of create a range. So it's really important that you try to have a pretty good educated understanding through doing your CMA, how much that property is likely going to sell for, and just kind of open it up with a range. So let's say we feel it's going to sell for about 115. So let's say with that, we're going to tell them what would happen if it sold for 110, what would happen if it sold for 120. And then your commission is entered here, 6%. We wouldn't never suggest that they actually buy a home warranty, but that could be a negotiable item, so there's 0 cost. We're not going to assume that they're going to pay any of the buyer's closing costs at this point yet. There's an admin fee of $250. During your qualifications of the seller, one of the questions that we always tell you to ask is, what is the balance of your mortgage? So let's say that they told us it was 63,000 on a second mortgage. Then closing date. So if I was listing property in today's market, I would probably push out a potential closing date, about 3 months out. And this is just for sample purposes, because what it's going to do is take that closing date and then actually calculate the property taxes owed by the seller up until the date of closing. So let's say for the sample that the taxes are $2,400 a year. We're going to suggest that the closing date is 3 months out. At this point, that would be around January 30th, 2019. And then I can add another fee if there's something else, a road assessment or a special assessment or something like that. But this pretty much does it. So all I do is hit calculate and print, and it's pulling down a document. It's downloading it down in the lower left corner. I have access to it. I open it up, and there you go. Basically, this gives you a really close estimate of what the seller can expect at the closing table should the home sell for $110,000. They would, after paying mortgage and everything off, they're going to have about $38,000. If it sold for $120,000, then they would come out closer to 47,000 plus. It gives them ability you could have them sign this document. And another point in time where this is valuable is then once you go into a purchase contract with an owner, or suggesting a sale price that they may accept, then you could do another net sheet that would give them close figures based on actual contract sale price. So I went through all the demonstrations of how to use the Forms Wizard in detail. Thank you very much for watching this video. Hopefully it was helpful, and please watch any other video that might be valuable in helping you learn how to use all the features in the back office system.